Hi, how are you all? Happy spooky season. Today's book review is book 2 of my spooky library book haul that I did for this fabulous month of October of 2022. And it is The Children on the Hill. So I just picked it up randomly. I hadn't seen this book before, haven't read this author before, and I think it's somewhat new, like within the past year. I should read the copyright page, but you know, I don't always do that. And so I just randomly picked it up, like I said, and I liked it based on the summary. So I did a summary actually based on just the book cover summary in the Halloween book haul TBR, but it's actually a little misleading in a way how they write it out on the book cover and even on Goodreads and Amazon. Just reading the summary without any knowledge, I was really thinking that this was a world where there were in fact real life monsters like Bigfoot and Mothman and all that stuff, because at the end of the summary we're talking about 2019, and this person, one of the main characters, Lizzie, is out to find this monster that keeps popping up everywhere. And like whenever a missing girl happens, there's a monster that comes up, and then they just disappear out of nowhere and there's no body, and it's always young women, and they're always ones that no one cares about, right? And this also goes in line with the 1970s, late 1970s, where I actually got this wrong. I thought it was the mother. It's actually the grandmother of two kids. Follow Lizzie in 2019 and V in the 1970s. And V has a brother. And this is where I was having some problems with. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was for about 70%. It was going to be like a 3.5, and I couldn't feel myself giving it a 4 stars. And a lot of the reason for that is the switching back and forth point of views I don't think were completely necessary, especially when the time jumps happened a lot and it was out of order and switched from first person to third person between V and Lizzie. And then also there was another entry which I thought was interesting, but this is kind of like how messy it is, where it was like an article from a journalist talking about the grandmother who's a psychiatrist, and she has a mental institution, and it's supposed to be all fancy and grand and all about healing and being very positive with the patients and not treating them horribly. Well, you know, that's not right because this is a horror novel. So I did like the journalist articles. It wasn't many, maybe like 5, because I just really wanted to know. I was really fascinated about how the truth comes out about this psychiatric mental institution in like Nowheresville, Vermont, and the V specifically, and then the child that the grandmother just happens to find and takes care of her and brings her into the house. And there's this whole thing where V and her brother and just like other people are like, yeah, she doesn't treat anyone under 18. So that's kind of a hint. That's something a little sketch, right? So this one is just like special? I don't know. Well, technically, yeah, she is special. So I did not like particularly the setup of the beginning, because I think there was just too many switches, especially from first person to third person, between the monster and then also their monster book, which they create and they just talk about monsters, the three children, which is, I don't think the monster book entries needed to be there. It added nothing. So even off the bat, giving it 4 stars because of the endings being like blowing my mind. The monster entries, don't care. I don't think that really brought anything. I think it's more of a mystery about what the monster book contains. We don't need to have like 1 page, literally like in a book, just 1 page of what the monster book says in a specific chapter within the monster book, and that is a chapter within the book. Does that make sense? That's a little too much for me, right? It's probably too much for you, because I was just thinking, why is it here? I don't know why it's here. I don't know. Just add, I guess, more mystery or something. But I was trying to figure out who the monster is, and that's always in first person, and this is where my mind was blown. It's actually V, big spoiler alert, and I thought it was going to be the kid that was brought in randomly, and that's where I was like, oh wow, I didn't catch that. I really didn't, and my mind was blown for like the rest of the book. I need to work maybe on like figuring out like the book plot eggs, Easter eggs, is that the term? I'm not good with specific words and how to describe things, obviously. I know there's a term with eggs. But anyway, as I said, lots of shifting, lots of jumping back and forth, and there are some, like later on in the novel, which bothered me a little bit, but I was still very invested because I figured out, well, not figured out, I realized that V was the monster and the child was Lizzie, and Lizzie's, you know, trying to find the monster because it's her sister, adopted sister, and she has to stop the sister, right? And I was like, oh my god, we gotta stop the sister. I couldn't figure this out, but I'm invested. I think there was too much jumping between 1970s and 2019. I think they should have just did the whole final scene in this 1970s where V burns everything to the ground, and then we go back to Lizzie and her finding V and figuring out, you know, the tie-ins and the mystery of all the, you know, the missing girls and all that stuff. I think it would have been cleaner in a way, more organized for sure, and not as jumbled. I think this book, I'm not sure if it's meant to be that way, but it makes you feel disorganized and jumbled. I can see where writers will want people to be feeling uncomfortable with certain topics, like dark topics, so they'll do, you know, things like a lot of jumping to make you feel uncomfortable and use specific tenses and points of view, but I didn't feel like it needed to be like that. I think it would have just been better at the, well, just like the whole book, but especially at the end, where you could have just let the reader read the whole scene or the whole story of V figuring out who she is and thinking that she's a monster, and then really putting that on her shoulders and then saying, yeah, I'm gonna be a monster. And then we jump to like 2019, so like they're in their 50s now, and Lizzie's thinking that her sister is killing the girls when in actuality that's not the case. And then, you know, figuring out what do we do from here. And I think that would have been a bit more interesting, instead of like, there were a bunch of chapters was just going back and forth between 70s and 2019, and we're inching closer to the monster, and oh, we're in the tower with the monster, oh no, we're gonna go back to the 70s and we're outside and the house is on fire, and then, you know, the V runs away, and then we're back to the 2019 and there's more, like there's just a little bit too much. But I was so shocked because the writing for that was really well done, because I was really thinking that Lizzie was V. And then when you have the monster first person point of views, which are only like a few pages randomly scattered throughout the novel, you think, oh, it's actually Lizzie grown up. And you know, we're trying to figure out the triangle, or probably like a rectangle or something. There's just a lot going on. I have to like think for a second what happened, but I like that. It's making me think, it's making me remember specific details. I didn't figure out that V is the monster, but I think that is good writing. Maybe other people figured it out and I'm just slow, but I think looking now, I didn't look at the reviews when I was reading, but looking back at the reviews now, what I've noticed is not a lot of people figured it out. It was kind of surprising, so I like that. That is something that clues me in that the writer knows what she's doing, and also that I'm not dumb. So that's a plus. The negative, other than what I've mentioned, is that I don't think we needed to have V and most recent dead girl kill her father at the very end. Now, V thinks that she's a monster, and the psychiatrist that basically kidnapped her and then brainwashed her, and then really did brainwash her into accidentally killing her family in a fire, and then torturing her so that she doesn't remember anything, and she has scars all over her body, and she was burned, and she was beaten, and she was submerged into cold ice water for like hours, electric shock therapy. Like, it's freaking horrible. You can't say that this psychiatrist is a good person. You can't say this is a good doctor. She's a bitch, okay? Crazy and a bitch. But as a child, she's 13 when she realizes that she killed her family in a fire. She thinks that she's a monster, and she can't comprehend. And I understand that. And then she runs away. But then killing the abusive father, like, I understand. I get it. I have PTSD from child abuse. I really do understand that thought process. But I don't think that torturing and killing someone, especially with this teenage girl who's like late teens, maybe even like about to go to college, so graduated high school. I forget the details, but she is late teens, and you're letting her kill her dad, who is abusive, yes, but I think the point, the aftermath with the monster, there was proof that he was abusive, and for a very long time. So he would have been imprisoned for like the rest of his life. That's what the implication is about, which Lizzie summarizes before we move on to them torturing and then killing the dad. I don't know what statement that was for. Maybe to feel uncomfortable. I kind of do hope that we're not going with the vigilante thing of it's totally okay to torture and kill people, because though the torture was not explicit whatsoever, you know, ripping people's tongues out or chopping off toes and fingers, it's not okay. And I just want to say that it's not okay because that was where I was having some trouble with. Did I see it coming? I could see that V was maybe killing like abusive people, maybe when she was like a teenager, but maybe she grew up or out of it or something like that. I could see that, but then it was leading towards, oh, that's in the past and she doesn't do that anymore, which that's a whole different thing. You know, you're killing people because you think you're a monster. There's some psychological stuff going on there, okay? That's really hard because everything that happened to V. Psychiatrist is crazy bitch. But that doesn't mean that you get to be a crazy bitch and say that I'm killing bad people. So it's okay to basically do the same thing as the psychiatrist. So that's where my thought process is going with that. I'm not saying that the author is in favor of doing it, because this is a horror book, and I think the uncomfortableness is there because it's horror, and you get a glimpse that, oh, V's doing the right thing, it's okay, and then psych, it's not. So Lizzie let her sister V go because technically, well, yeah, V kind of lied to her. She just left out the fact that I torture and kill these people, and oh yes, but I save these teen girls and they live fantastic lives afterwards. Yeah, but what does it do to them? And you're also taking advantage of them because you're saying that it's okay to torture and kill people, and then, you know, good luck with the rest of your life. That's something that you brew over, that you have to think over, and that was something that I'm still not 100% sure on. And was it good for the ending of this novel? I don't know. And that's why I really couldn't give it 5 stars. But I really did enjoy it. I loved the classic horror aspect, where they were talking about all the classic movies, a lot of them pre-code. And I don't know why I'm like on a pre-code spooky, scary book and movies binge, because this book, the book that I'm reading, Siren Queen, and all the horror movies that I'm watching with my fiance right now for Halloween season, a lot of them have been really old movies, and a lot of them have been pre-code, and I'm just like, I know that one, I know this one, I know all of them, I've watched it. I think my favorite one has been Dracula, 1920s, and they mentioned it, and I was like, oh my god, I know it. I know this. Whatever, I fangirl over the weirdest things, it's fine. But I liked in the acknowledgement section, Jennifer said that her and her partner and her daughter, she was thanking them for watching all the old horror movies so she could reference them and like know what is going on, and subtle references that only people like me would know. I feel so classy, but I'm not, I just feel it. I do recommend this book. I think it goes a lot into the psychological thriller aspect, more so than just a regular horror book with monsters. I don't know if the summary gives it much justice, because I was really thinking it was a horror book with monsters and a little bit of psychological thriller. But it's a great spooky book, and it's not very violent. I don't really think it's that violent. She doesn't describe violence very much, unless you are talking about when characters are describing what the psychiatrist did, and that at the very end where the teenager kills her abusive father. So yeah, there is violence, but it's not written out, if that makes sense. But it's also, you know, a horror book, so I don't know what to tell you. It's pretty messed up, but I think really does make me think still, and I'm probably going to be thinking about it for the rest of the month. Was the ending needed? Was it justifiable that she included it like that, or did we really need to end on that note? I'm not saying that Jennifer thinks that that is correct, but as a story, right? As the story, I don't know if that was needed. It just makes her look even worse, and I don't know if V needed to look worse than she already kind of is when she was implying that she was, you know, a bad person, but now, you know, she's good because she's helping teenagers that need help to get out of abusive relationships and family life, just like her, I think was, you know, paraphrasing. but because the psychiatrist did so much crap to her for years, and, you know, kidnapped her and brainwashed her into killing her family at like 5, 6, that really messes you up. And that's where we have to, you know, think about it and understanding where those feelings come from about revenge. I get it, and that's probably why I'm having some trouble, because there are plenty of people like Lizzie, or like the brother, Charles. I forgot to mention that, yes. Sorry, I was more invested in Lizzie and V, sorry, to be honest. But Lizzie turned out fine, and Eric turned out fine, but they had extensive, I'm saying extensive therapy for like the whole time they were in foster care, and they were given a great foster care family. I think they were separated, but so they got a foundation that was stable after massive abuse and trauma, and that also is coupled with intense therapy. Specifically, we're going for trauma therapy, let's say probably like depression, anxiety, social anxiety, probably we could also go dissociation, psychosis. There's a lot of things that those children went through. Absolutely understand why they would have mental illnesses, but you can get better, and Lizzie and Charles did get better. So you can't say with 100% certainty that V would always be down the path of killing people. They should have been watching all 3 of the children, and they should have caught V before she ran away at 13, because then there is a chance. In her 50s, killing and torturing people and thinking that she's living her best life and doing the right thing no matter what, and embracing that she's a monster because of that, you're lost. Sorry, but, you know, your 50s, like going on 60s, it's unfortunate. And I wish, you know, that V had the same opportunity and love that Lizzie and Charles had, and I think that's also why it's hard for me. That ending is difficult, because it could have been so much different for V, and she could have found love. And I think one of the very important inputs of the journalist research chapters that's at the very end of the novel is that the journalist finds V's biological family, and it's already out about what happened because she published the findings, and they still say, we know what you've done, but we love you, and we understand that it wasn't your fault. You were 5, 6 years old. You were brainwashed by this psychiatrist that is into eugenics, and we don't blame you. Please come home because we love you. But V didn't see that, and that's very sad. I think that's why it's a psychological thriller, because it's messing with my mind. There are so many possibilities, and I think actually talking it out like a therapy session, that's probably why Jennifer finished off the book in that way. And though it saddens me, and maybe you could do something different, I don't know, but well, you can do something, then there's choices and opportunities for everything, you know, but I understand why she did that ending. Thank you for the therapy session. Just saying. Had to, I guess, chat that out. I would with my fiance, but he hasn't read the book. I mean, it's not like you've read the book either, people watching, but maybe you have, or you're interested in reading it. So if you have read it, or you're interested in reading it, but you decided to watch this very spoilery video, please comment with your thoughts and opinions. I would love to have a discussion about this particular book in the comment section. My mind is blown, but I did have to knock off the 1 star, and you know, but I don't think that diminishes the book or the story at all. It's just that there's a lot inside me. I am an emotional reader. Also, the fact with the unnecessary monster book entries and the point of views and the first person, second person. Yeah, there was some other like writing style that I was not too keen on and was very jumbled, like, but not in a good way. Thank you so much for watching my review. Other than that, have a great reading and writing day. Bye.